And usually we just hang out for just a second and let people know that we're live. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Leslie-Claire Spillman. I'm the co-owner of Spillman Blackwell Fine Art. I'm also the curator of Embodied, an exhibition of 4 New Orleans-based artists making figurative work in a whole lot of different ways. And I'm really pleased to be standing here talking to Miss TENEILLE Prosper. Hi. I was fortunate to meet TENEILLE at the Joan Mitchell Center. Shout out to the Joan Mitchell Center. They do amazing things. And when I met her, there was this painting hanging outside of her studio in an otherwise pretty barren studio. But this painting greeted me at the door. And then another painting that you'll see in a minute was just getting started. But I was just so wowed by the work. And having been in the gallery now with it for almost 2 months, it's really fun to see how wowed everyone is who comes in and experiences the work. And so I'm happy to, help folks unpack a little bit of what's in these very rich, very dense paintings with the one who created them. So thank you so much, TENEILLE, for your time. So let's start by letting everybody know who's TENEILLE.
Well, hi. My name is TENEILLE Prosper. I'm a native of New Orleans. I've been away for about 20 years. Just got back home, and when I came back home, there were so many things that were so different. I just felt like, how can I address some of the feelings that I was having? Which as a native, it was usually a sense of identity and a belonging, and as an African-American person. But that kind of transitioned into other stories I wanted to address that was going on in the world. I came back around COVID. So there was the world shut down. So I was able to experience New Orleans, by myself at my own pace. And there were so many things going on, and I just reacted as an artist, and thus started my resurgence as an artist. So that's what
Nice. That's why I was trying to tell people, they assume looking at the work that you're in a different place in your career than you are. And I try to say, actually, TENEILLE it's not fair to call you emerging, but in a lot of ways you are re-emerging. And I think it's amazing just how sophisticated the work is. And I always tell people, TENEILLE is a toiler. They're not fast.
They're not fast at all.
So just before we get into the nitty-gritty of the work, tell people about your practice. Just like your day to day. Like I said, these aren't fast paintings. So what does a day in your practice look like?
Oh, wow. A lot of reading. I find myself in rabbit holes when it comes to history. And with my work, I am compelled to tell the truth because I do enjoy history, especially art history. And the fact that it's being so distorted and reframed, I want to make sure that when I'm creating work, it is the truth. So because I expect my work to educate, and through education, it has to be the truth. And so it's a lot of, like I said, reading, watching documentaries. So that happens probably every week. And then it's sketching ideas when they come to me. And then, of course, sitting down and painting, which I have an overnight schedule. I'm not sure why, but I love to paint overnight. So I was just telling somebody my midnight is usually, my midday is their midnight. So it's just, I just enjoy painting at night.
You think that's by virtue of also being a mom?
Probably so.
That's like your quiet time?
Yes. That might be
because these do seem really careful and contemplative, and there's nothing arbitrary happening in them, and you seem like really methodical.
Yes, I am. Yeah, I think everything is intentional.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember being a student. I remember John Scott used to say, "There's no arbitrary. When you're doing art, be very thoughtful, be very mindful. Everything should be intentional. So, and that's how I look at art. If I see something, I expect that it wasn't arbitrary for the artist, and there's something deeper. And I would want people to question my work like that as well.
That's so funny that you credit Scott with that, because I'm pretty sure that's why I appreciate that about your work, because he drilled that into me too.
Yes, absolutely.
So For those who have not had the pleasure of experiencing this exhibition in person, stay where you are, but I'm just going to give folks a pan. TENEILLE's contribution is 4 paintings. They are installed chronologically, for lack of a better word. And tell us what is meant by Spill the Tea series.
Well, of course, the phrase in contemporary times is you have a story to tell. You know, whether it's gossip, something juicy, something important. So, you know, what's the tea? What's the story? You know, so I got the idea for that title from that, because each woman has a story to tell. And that's why the teacups are important. Each woman is holding a teacup. It is a symbolism. It's not literal, but yeah, so I just wanted each woman to be able to voice what's going on in her time, in an effort to kind of really tell her story. Because at the core of Spill the Tea series, it is a recentering of the Black woman in her own history. Because oftentimes Black women are erased, we're reduced to tropes, or we're seen through a lens of suffering without agency. People in society are defining us for us. So this is a self-definition. It's a series of reclamation of our history, our power, of our identity. And so each woman is important, and she needs to be seen beyond whatever stereotype you want to label her with, because she has so much to say. And there's no way that you can stand in front of each one of these paintings and define her by a stereotype, because she's saying too much. I challenge what society wants to say and how they want to reduce her, because each woman in our own history, and reflective in these paintings, are they're thinkers, they're strategists, they're mothers, they're warriors, they're protectors. They are not the stereotype. And my effort is I need to show them so they can redefine themselves by themselves, not by you, but like I said, it's a self-definition.
And you say she, right? You and I were having a chat about this right before we went live, and I was asking you what's something you wish people would ask you about this work that they don't, and you remarked about that these women have names. Can you speak on that?
Each painting contains a name, and it really is because, like I mentioned, Black women in history are often erased or forgotten, and so our humanity is also removed. And so each woman, when you mention the painting, if you forget the title, I'm hoping that you remember her name. So each title contains a name, and it coincides with the contemporary Say Her Name social justice campaign, which of course it combats police brutality and violence against Black women and Black girls. But yeah, it's a constant just reaffirming who she is. So when you refer to her, this is Sarah Sipping Secrets, Lucy's Fair Share, Ruby's Rhyme and Reasons, Medora Lisa. So if you forget if you forget their title, excuse me, I would hope that you remember her name, and you have to say her name when you're referring to her.
Say her name. So we're looking at portraits of the struggle of Black women and what they've been able to endure throughout various points in history. And like I shared at the beginning, these are laid out chronologically. So obviously we are in the plantation, chattel slavery, antebellum South with this piece. Break down a few of the symbols here for us.
Well, let me go ahead and start off that the cigarette and the teacup are not literal. They're figurative. If anything, the cigarette is to represent her agency. She has autonomy in this moment. Whatever she's thinking and feeling is her right to. And whatever you bring as a viewer, as far as how you read the cigarette, that's fine. And of course, the teacup is her story. And the teacup also is a symbol of wealth, exclusion, gossip, white femininity, European influence. And so here it is. These women have a right to tell and talk as well. But this is basically telling you how our history in America started, where every part of who we are were exploited and abused. Here, of course, this would be the white male. We had to take care of white children while we couldn't take care of our own. This is the white female, the mistress, which people a lot of times in history discount, but she was a businesswoman waiting for the next yield of slaves. So this is just her showing that, when people describe Black women now, and reduce us to these tropes, starting with her, I just want everyone to understand that, she suffered greatly where no parts of her were really allowed to be hers. And then the story continues, hoping for understanding, to promote dialogue and ultimately promote change. So
let's talk about this lady right here.
Well, this is Lucy's fair share. And that is a play on words if you look at the story. Because fair, obviously because she's fair skinned. And of course, New Orleans, we say cher, which means beloved. But another meaning, it also means very expensive. And she represents part of, I guess, the slave narrative where there was another section called the fancy trade. Mm-hmm. Fancy trades were specific to fair-skinned slaves, and it was for the purpose of being a concubine. And that's why she's dressed up. She's made pretty because she is a product. She's providing a service. And even here, her body and her life is not her own. And the teacup here, of course, is clad with money because that's what she represents. Mm. And it's really just a story. And even here, this is the slave mother, and it's just different shades of her children being ripped from her. And of course, as far as, like I said, Lucy's story, it is where she goes into slavery for sex trafficking. And with each of these stories, it really is to show, this isn't just individual trauma. This is historical cycles of oppression that actually still persists today. Mm. So this is not me going back in time. Why am I telling these stories? We want to move on from these narratives, but each woman is trying to tell you this is what she went through. And if you look closely, we're still going through it in some form today. Some residual form of it still exists today. And that's what I'm trying to do. Kind of like, don't run away from this history, because to run away from this history, even though it's traumatic, you have to see the power of these women. To ignore this history is to ignore these women. And these women have endured, and they've endured to the point where we're here talking about them right now. Had they decided to give up, we wouldn't be here. So that's what I wanted to show. I wanted to show, do not run away from these stories, because just like that phrase, you won't know where you're going if you don't know where you come from. It really is that, because I often say that history can be forgotten in a generation. A generation is like 20, 25 years, so imagine what they're doing now. They're banning books, they're banning histories, they're targeting certain types of discussions on race, they're reframing, erasing, so my thing is, if they had their way in 20 years, where would our children be? What would they be fighting for? They have a distorted history, a watered down history. So I don't mind if my work makes you uncomfortable, because it's the truth. And that's why I said a lot of times I do a lot of reading, going down rabbit holes. I want to make sure I'm accurate. Because when you see this history, this is the truth.
Well, speaking of resistance, I think besides Sarah, right, because she greets people, and I was just concerned about your hair hitting the mic. And I don't know if we're getting any feedback, but besides Sarah, she's really talked about, Ruby seems to be the favorite. So let's get into it.
Okay. I love Ruby too. I actually loved painting her. I loved adding a daughter and then another daughter. She is the protector. She's a protector. And like I said, these women, it's not just their individual trauma. They represent ongoing oppression. And of course, her story is as a protector. And I have the gun in the picture because it can be figurative. I mean, it can be literal if you want, but it's mostly figurative because she has so much to protect. She has to protect our history. She has to pass it down. She has to protect her children. She has to protect her worth. She has to protect her identity. She has to protect her power, all while going through this oppression, all while being dismissed, all while being invisible, all while being defined by these tropes, all while combating derogatory narratives. She has to be the protector. And I was just speaking with somebody recently where the gun is, she has to stay ready. She has to stay ready for when society takes her husband, when society goes after her sons, when society dismisses her daughters. Ruby has to stay ready, and she passes that down. So every generation, they have to stay ready because oppression hasn't ended. It didn't end with slavery and segregation. It really just evolved.
Sure. To that note, right? When people, it's great. One of the things I love about people experiencing your work is that when they first come in, there's this pow effect, right? Which is achieved in this bold figuration, right? But then after that immediate pow, there's an invitation in this really intricate collage work, but that is not to say messy, but stylistically is in contrast to this sort of the richness of the paint. And it starts revealing all of these additional layers of context. So speak to us a little bit about just the use of collage in your work in general, but also in this piece. What are we looking at here?
I'm so glad you said that because I haven't really thought about it for a while, but I like that contrast. And I kind of went for it. It kind of happened organically, and then I just kind of fell into it. I want you to feel that energy. The collage is, of course, my way of being able to tell as much history as I want, because I have the viewer for just that moment.
Sure.
You may not come back here, and I need you to feel something. I need you to see the history, feel it. I don't care what you're feeling. I actually aim to provoke. I want you.
Oh, girl, you're doing it.
I want to provoke something. I want to make you question, because the whole point of this series is to create dialogue, because ultimately we don't want to stay here. We want understanding, and understanding leads to change. But yeah, I wanted it sometimes chaotic. I wanted her chaotic, because if you can only imagine what she had to go through while being a mother and a wife, and a daughter, and still trying to exist and reclaim space that she wasn't originally expected to be in, and it's like, but she knows it. And so
these are women, these are historical images of women who were actually lynched.
Yes.
And then what are the names we're looking at
now
here?
These, to tie it into modern day times, contemporary times, these are names of women who were forgotten, who were lynched as well. And it transitions all the way to contemporary times of women who've suffered at the hands of mob violence and police violence, who've died at the hands of police. And so, yes. And again, it really just coincides with the say her name. Like, we're not invisible. We're not invisible. We deserve to be recognized and acknowledged. This history deserves to be acknowledged. But yeah, that's what these women are.
And lastly, our contemporary portrait, which, for me, when I put up an exhibition or when I get a body of work, like, my favorites always change, right? I have the ones that I like. When you first sent me pictures, there were ones that I really responded to. And then, I don't know, it changes and I start to love them each differently. And she's my current obsession. For me, being in this business so long, loving figurative work, loving portraiture, it's so rare that you see such a beautiful portrait of a woman with a larger body, with dark skin. I love that she's like man-spreading.
Yes.
She's taking up space.
Yes.
I love your decision not to cover her body.
Yeah.
She's showing skin. She's, like all of the women, meeting your gaze so confidently. And it's it fits so squarely in, but maybe just by virtue of it being so contemporary, she really stands out in the series to me. Tell us a little bit about her.
Okay, so this is Medora Lisa, play on Mona Lisa. This is, I refer to it as my beauty piece because standards of beauty in America, Black women have not met because of their standards. And she is taking up space. And I wanted her to appear like her story to tell, like she's completely bothered by this narrative. Again, like I said, this series is about self-definition. And she wants to show that this is not her definition of beauty. And this right here, this collage is to show you just the history of how our identity was created, not by us. And it starts with the minstrel shows, the advertisements of the derogatory caricatures. And that's what flooded the market for us to see and for them to see, any non-Black person. So this is creating the identity for everyone, for us. But, you know, this series also is an offering of a counter narrative, you know, to challenge the dominant stories that exist about us. And this is hers. This is hers. And up here, even now, you know, I had this idea like a year ago, last spring, and I was showing how all of these, you know, movie, studios, television, radio, you know, they existed like 100 years ago, you know, and they were controlling the narrative for America, for everyone to see, for us to see. And of course she's saying it's not fair, it's not right, and she knows it. And each one, you mentioned they have a gaze. I wanted each woman to look the viewer directly in the eye because she needs you to get it. She needs the viewer to get it and to see her. And no matter where you move in this space, I would hope that her gaze, yes, she follows you because she's that important, and she knows this moment is that important.
Well, just to just to wrap up, and I should have said this at the beginning. We're gonna move on in a second and talk to another artist. But if anybody has any questions for TENEILLE, you can fire them off now. Or while we're talking to Cypher, if questions for either artist come up and we have a minute at the end, we'll try to get them answered for you. But if you have a question for TENEILLE, fire it off now. My last question for you is, what's next for you?
I just accepted a residency in upstate New York. And I'm going to work on another series. I call it my Gold Teeth series. It is also about our history and telling our stories. And it's not limited to Black women either. But I'm excited about it. I'm glad this residency came up because it's gonna push me to go ahead and tackle that series, which I think is a very important series.
And is this series done?
It is not. This is a 10-part series. I do spend a lot of time on my work. I love sitting with my work because I always see something that I need to change or could change or saying something else. But it's not. It's a 10-part series. I have a medical piece that comes right after it. I have a piece that talks about the 80s, you know, and I have a piece, a final piece where I can go ahead and tell you it ends with a mother pouring her tea and her stories into her children's teacups. And so I would love to finish that this year.
You'll get to it. You'll get to it. Everybody, TENEILLE Prosper. Thank you so much,
No
TENEILLE.
problem.
Let me grab that mic from you, my love. Okay. We are going to come over here and get treated. 1 second. Let me give you your mic, sir. You know, we're real informal around here. Sorry. All right, everybody. This is Mr. Cypher. I'm so happy that he has decided to join us, not just in this exhibition, but today. You're probably, of the 4 artists, the one that I know the least personally.
Right.
But I'm trying to think of where I even saw your work for the first time, probably through Larry.
Yeah.
But you're one of those artists that's been hard not to pay attention to, and you keep popping up all over New Orleans and events that I've seen in recent years, and your work seems to really be changing and growing.
Right.
But I would love for you to tell us where you're from, who you are, what you're about, and what you started with. Did you start by painting?
Well, my name's Devin Dennis. I go by Cypher. A lot of people know me as Cypher. Jesus Saif. Born and raised in New Orleans, uptown. Self-taught artist. I grew up in a home with traditional artists. They studied. My grandmother started her art journey with ISIAH in Janet Napoli in the 90s. So I really grew up in this art environment. It was always there. It was always something that came easy because I was watching a lot of the older kids and my uncle Fred, who's an amazing artist, do things. And as a kid, you're easily able to mimic certain things a little faster and quicker and more detailed than sometimes once you're older and you get that structure of these boxes. So I kind of follow that.
Do you feel like you were, obviously, because you grew up around so many artists in the family,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like you kind of, it was kind of in the blood, or like, do you feel like they nurtured it more, your interest in art? Because we all start off as artists, right?
Right.
But then either it's not nurtured at home, or when we go to school, we don't feel like we're that good at it, or we compare ourselves to others. It seems like you were really invested in from a really early age.
Yeah, I think it was just natural. I think it wasn't something that it started with coloring books, really, like just being really neat. And I think my grandmother noticed that, like, you know.
Oh, you were neat colors.
Yeah. Like shedding, you know, like knowing not to go too hard on reds and when to turn the crayon to the side. So it started with like that. And she saw like my coloring book, like, wow, this is crazy. Like, you know, this is so detailed. And then, like I said, she started, you know, letting me come to ISIAH after school. And, you know, as kids, we draw cartoons and, you know, the normal stuff. But it was something that always kept my interest. It always kept my mind going. And I kind of started seeing everything as art. Like, you know, I could paint that, or maybe I could draw that, or, you know, incorporate into my backpack or something. Like I might say, okay, I want to draw this on my backpack. You know, that was the thing growing up, you know.
Did you think you would be an artist? Did you want to grow up and be an artist?
I don't know. No.
What did you want to grow up and do?
I don't know.
No?
I just was like, I got to do something I can be happy with and like take care of my family. But I never thought I would find my way back to this, you know.
And this isn't the only medium that you use to express yourself. You're a musician too, yes?
Yeah. I did a lot of songwriting and rapping, and I was in a group for a while. So music, I played the saxophone and piano as a kid. Still dabble with a little piano here and there, but I won't call myself Bach or anybody like that. But I've always been curious, like, you know, with sounds and colors and being able to hear a sound and make a color to it, and knowing how to, you know, match things like that with movement and volume and other ways of connection type of thing. So that's always kind of been how I viewed it.
So for your, like I was asking TENEILLE, like beyond just what you're at in the work, narrative-wise, what does a typical day in your practice look like? Do you paint to music? Do you paint at strange hours of the night? How much do you paint today? Like, what's your practice day to day like?
Yeah, it depends.
On what else is going on?
Yeah. I mean, just like you know, TENEILLE, I'm a dad. I have 3 kids. So it varies, you know, mostly in the middle of the night though.
Yeah.
Like I'll fall asleep, wake up at 1, and then I'm up until I take my kids to school. The day continues. I may come home, paint a little bit, but the middle, when it's quiet is when it's best, I think.
Sure.
You know, it's like even in the shower, you know, songs, melodies, something about water, it's calming, peaceful, tranquil. So you're able to think, and then you get to listen at night when it's really, really quiet. You hear people walking by talking, you hear trash getting thrown out, you hear arguments, you hear cars breaking down, being broken into, you hear the gunshots. So you get to like...
It's like a stimulation for the imagination.
Yeah, but it's also like a soundtrack, which is back to the music, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I wonder what that is. I wonder... And then I might hear somebody arguing and be like, oh, they said that, let me jot that down.
Yeah.
While I'm listening to some documentary in the background. I don't really listen to music when I paint.
Really?
Yeah, I like documentaries and history
Podcasts and
stuff.
stuff.
No, not podcasts, more history-based stuff. You know, I like to listen to stuff while I paint because it keeps me thinking and not so super concentrated on the painting.
Sure.
You know, I like to do
Saying that like
I like to do a lot of things at once, I guess. So like it keeps me distracted and focused, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. So in terms of your painting style, right, you have such a dynamic, first of all, color sense, but then just the way that you paint is so free and loose, but also you, like TENEILLE, are incorporating collage elements. So I'm curious, when the collage made its way into your work, and has this been the style that you've always worked in, or how has your style evolved to this?
Yeah, collage was always something. Again, my grandmother, I learned, actually, I never took an art class. I didn't know what a color wheel was until I was 26, 27 years old. But I learned my colors by dyeing Easter eggs. So that's how my grandmother taught me to blend colors and watercolors and how to mix colors and how to blend colors. And with watercolors and Easter eggs, it has that vinegary smell and you can't really mess up. You know, you're going to get either one solid color eggs, and it got to the point where I was like, this is boring. I want my eggs to look like a bunch of different colors. So that's when the mixing of the colors and just being able to know, okay, this needs blue, this needs green without having to overthink it, you know. So that's where the color thing came from. And the collage, again, paper mache as a kid. I love paper mache. I love paper mache. Just because you can make it at home, flour, water, and
it's really accessible.
Newspaper, you know what I mean? So
it's really accessible, yeah.
I think that's why the collage for me is fun, because it's accessible. I can go pick up anything right now. Like some of these pieces are stuff I found on the street, on the ground. Like, oh, you know, this will be cool. So the aspect of it, the rawness of it, is why I like the collage. Again, I like people to be curious and ask me why. You know, why would you do this? What is this? What made you do that? You know, whether it be, oh, it's just a bunch of colors, or it's the, you know what I mean, shoulders of a giant. Collage pieces in there.
So break down what we see going on in this piece.
So basically with this piece, it's basically about being branded and labeled, you know. So, you know, in Black culture, labels are important, status symbols, you know, all of these things. And I wanted that to be the standout. You know, you have the BMW emblem, you have the floral patterns, pockets on the back. So I wanted that to be the focal point, and then this be the icing on the cake. You know, the woman, you know, being carried out by the white officers, because, you know, eventually the tides turn. You know what I mean? Every garbage can gets a steak. So, you know, so being branded and labeled a certain way doesn't mean that's who you are.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to talk to me to know who I am. Just because I like nice things doesn't mean I'm poor, I'm ignorant, this is all I know. So, and I wanted the colors to grab you in naturally, but then once you ask me, I can tell you you know, the deeper metaphor and what I actually had in mind.
Are you, so when you start a painting like this one, for example, do you have in mind kind of the narrative that you're going for? And then
never. No painting I've ever created, I'd start with an idea. It usually starts with the background, like whatever colors. So
you just block in the
and then like it kind of goes. It's like, okay, I see. If I do something abstract first, if I see movement in the abstract, then I add that movement to what I see, and then I kind of go from there. And it's like a writer writes a book.
Sure.
You know, you start, you go back, you start, and then you tell the story as you go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You type.
Because they don't look overworked at all. You don't look like self-conscious in the decisions that you make at all.
Right.
I mean, this is sort of this beautiful thin washes, and it just doesn't look like a lot of correction. It looks like you know exactly. So you're telling me that this is just kind of like the composition evolves based on how you've blocked in the background. It's so counter to what I would assume about the work, because it.
But the thing is, though, to be completely honest, once it starts, then I start to like, okay, let me make this let me tweak this. You know, like once I know where, like, okay, this is where I want the hair to be and how I want it to be flipped, then I'll say, okay, if I'm flipping through a magazine, oh, it's a bunch of braids. Okay, let me cut these braids out, match it to this hairstyle, just because Black women hair have textures. Every Black woman has a different type of texture of hair. Every Black person in general, every human being has a different type of texture of hair. So that's always the fluid narrative. Color is always the fluid narrative in my paintings, because color is America. You know, it's always, we always talk about color. It is never not an issue in no way, shape, form, or fashion. So I know it can look like playful, colorful things, but they all mean something. You know?
Yeah. I mean, they do have a playfulness about them, but they also do feel really serious. They feel like you're really talking about something. I love this set of 3.
Yeah.
Embodied 𝘌𝘥𝘪𝘦𝘥. Talk to us a little bit about these. How do you come up with titles, and do you prefer working in this scale, larger scale, or does it matter?
I'll go with titles first. Again, like when I'm listening to stuff, like I might hear, like if I'm like watching BBC, what's playing in the background, and I hear them talking about like an oligarch and using all these words I've never heard, I'm like, wow, this word sounds cool. Let me go research it, look it up, see what it means. And then as the work progresses, it's like, nah, that fit. Because I'll write it down. Like I barely write it on my phone. I'm a
word dork too.
Yeah.
I say words and phrases.
I'm bad with phones. I went summers without phones. Email me. Like as long as I can call my kids.
That is so artistic.
Like as long as I can call my kids, I'm cool. Like, you know, and that's really all that matters. My friends can find me on social media.
That's because you're grown.
Exactly.
Young people could never.
Somebody messaged me like, are you okay? I haven't seen you on social.
Like, I grew up
I'm like, I'm about to pool, having some wine. I'm in the point. I mean, I was just just chilling.
Yeah, I think you have to have experienced life without that. We're lucky.
I love not having a phone.
We're lucky. Oh,
I love it. I mean, I'm dying for my BlackBerry again. So.
Yeah. Tell us about these 3 pieces.
These 3 pieces, I wanted to show, just how 3 different things can all be cohesive, if that makes sense. And, you know, you have this is my version of a supermodel mom, right? She's pregnant. She's still sexy. She's flowing. Her daughter's taking her picture as if in current time, you see a lot of girls taking their mom's picture. Snap me out. I look cute. Mom, you know what I mean? So that's the relevancy of current times, but also she's taking a selfie of herself. You know what I mean? She's a supermodel. She's vain. She's, you know what I mean? Beauty is everything. But also she's, elegant. You know what I mean? I feel like she's not afraid to show her stomach, but her breasts are covered. You know what I mean? As if she was going out on a town in a mink. As if, so just that balance of
she's
how.
She's pretty fabulous.
Yeah. You know, and just, you know, her daughter in the polka dots, fully long dress covered, admiring her mom, appreciating what she does, appreciating her, understanding that her body will change when she becomes a woman.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? And not being able to be afraid of that as well, you know? So, and again, the cohesiveness is strength, right? You know, you have the boxer, you have the guy that's the ball player, the kid, you know, in the yard throwing the ball. And, you know, on his hat is American flag. You know, that's something, and I wanted to throw the metaphor on a American, you know, and that I'm American type of thing. It's kind of, you know, again, play on words. It's always the play on words. But again, he's showing his strength. He's showing his muscles. He's showing he's diverse. He's showing with the mixtures of palettes of his shirts. He's cultured. This is actual patch. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I just noticed this for the first time.
That's an actual patch.
On this conversation.
Yeah. So that's not a magazine ripping a cutout paper. That's an actual.
It's like a threaded
patch.
Yeah.
So like just to again switch from the Lacoste or the you know, the polo and you know what I mean, the dolphin, it represents me jumping out of the water, me jumping out of my atmosphere, me showing that strength, you know. And that was the idea with that. Again, strength. The boxer, you know, you get in the ring, you fight, you have to be in full control. You know, you getting punched in the face can't make you turn into this monster. But that may be on the inside. You know what I mean? That person may be screaming to get out. You know what I mean? And the sheep, you know, represents that normal adrenaline before that fight, before you go on the court, before you do anything. Sometimes you get a little nervous. So that's that fear, that sheep jumping out of the heart before this monster gets released. This strength, this beast who goes in the ring and shows you his fist. You know what I mean? And
your description is making it's making me understand why this piece always made me feel a little turbulent.
Yeah. Because we always get that. Some people get nervous. I get nervous.
Yeah. No, I mean it's really it's really effective. You're articulating what I didn't even understand. I always feel when I look at this painting. So that's dope.
Yeah.
Let's go to my fave. And I think everybody's fave. It's really cute. The Boys and Girls Club came in, and actually seeing them respond to both of y'all's work was hysterical and so precious. But it was like 40 little Black girls and probably between ages of like 10 to 11. And they brought them around and were doing little content for their Insta, asking them little interviews, asking them about their favorite paintings. And so at least half of them came to this painting and loved the feet, loved the teeth. But there's a lot going on in this piece. So first of all, seeing your work in this scale is truly exciting. I mean, y'all see how dynamic and vibrant they are, even in a small scale. So I don't even know that IG is going to really properly convey for you this sort of vibration that comes off of this piece. But talk to us about how this one came about, what it means, and how it feels to work in this scale.
Man, I sat with this canvas blank for a while just because I hadn't worked this big on something framed. I would, you know, my studio is a big warehouse where I would just roll canvas out and just go and then cut it up and then make something from there. I would just roll it out, paint it, and then cut it into different sizes. But I mean, this piece was, it was a lot of emotions. You know, this piece was just days of me working on something else and then just wiping it on here. Or it became like a rag at one point because I was like, I don't know what to do. What do I want to say? What do I have to say? What do people want me to say at this scale? And then eventually, you know, like I think I did the hat first. You know, and the arms came second. And that's why I pieced it together, because it came together like a science project.
Sure.
Like a piece. And then, you know, you see him with his gun holster. He's an old school cop, but his hands are up. Right? And, you know, we've seen it so many times where Black cops get pulled over. And they're like, I'm a cop. I'm
plain clothes.
I'm a local stranger. You see what I'm saying? So that's the metaphor in that. You got to like stop, like, you know, dude, I'm good. I'm one of you. But to them, you know, to the opposition, the op, whatever, you never one of them. And, you know, I wanted to have, again, like I said, the colors, the background to draw you in. And, you know, also the local stranger talks about the changes in our own city in New Orleans. You know, I go places and people ask me, where you from? You born here? Yeah, of course. You know, I can tell you're not though. You know what I mean? And again, you feel like a local stranger. Like, why are people talking to me like I didn't wasn't born at Charity. You know, like I didn't
It's weird how people
catch the
want to
bus
like,
and
people want to own New Orleans.
yeah, it's like,
So-
dude, but
like as soon as they get here.
but the sucky part about it is we allowed New Orleans to be for sale.
Of course.
That's on us.
Of course.
So after so long, you know, you leave something, somebody's gonna say, "Hey, you ain't doing nothing with it." Let me get it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, this piece was just after a while it got fun. You know, it became fun. The colors, I wanted to just do green and browns for some reason, just because I felt like it felt right. You know, I wanted to distort the face to show like how scarred he is from the encounter of being treated like a local stranger.
Mm.
He feels it on the inside, but I wanted it to show on the outside.
Mm.
So you can see like, you know, like, man, my face and my uniform and everything means nothing, you know? So that was important. And then, you know, the fire extinguisher, I wanted to be like playful as well as speak on like the hot situations and how nobody ever wants to cool them off for Black people. Like, yo, chill. Like, be real, be human now, be logical. Like, I know we love to use our $100 words and all these things, but it's real simple, man. You know, so I try to keep that balance in my work, you know, and
in terms of the scale, like, cause I have an artist who always works really large.
Right.
And I'm like, can I get one smaller painting? You know, like not everybody has
right.
12-foot ceilings or whatever. And it's torture for him to work small. He only likes to work big. How does it, like, what is the experience of painting for you? You said this sat for a long time. Do you think the scale of it was daunting for you? Is it easier to jump into a 16 by 20 than a...
No, it's easy to paint big. It was the smaller pieces were the harder pieces because
you have to contain
because I have to contain it. You know, it's like, I want to, you know, and you know, you have to, you know, tape stuff off sometimes. But it was a challenge. Like, you know, and again, like I said, I started just being around other artists and seeing their works and having conversations and learning things from other artists. And then like, yo, Cypher, you should try this.
Yeah.
Like I painted on the ground for the longest.
Yeah.
And, you know, a couple artist friends of mine was like, yo, you should buy an easel, bro. Like, you know, your back is going to be, and I was like, all right, I get an easel. And again, like this, again, the work evolves because I'm learning from my peers, trying new things. I'm asking questions. I'm incorporating what I know personally, which I think I like to do because it helps people who buy my work, purchase my work, see my work, ask questions about my work, connect with me, you know, which allows me to tell the long-winded story of why I even feel these things. So yeah, I love working big. If I could just make big paintings all day. Then,
I mean,
you know.
this one's pretty exciting. Also, just like, you know, the brushwork is really, really, really dynamic in this one. Like I can tell you it's really developed, and layered. It's a good one.
I love layers.
And then lastly, this gorgeous thing.
Yeah. And this one, I feel like this one ties this whole run into each other because they all represent the neighborhood, you know, and this one is, you know, titled, you know, Neighborhood Watch. And, you see her leaning. He got his hand on her thigh. He has his pistol. They was playing basketball. He stopped, you know, and it's to, again, protect what's ours. Like, you know, where you think you're going? You know what I'm saying? And he got his hand like, hold on, babe. I'm strapped like this. It's cool. That's a real thing where I grew up at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody made the block too many times. It's like, yo, what you looking for? So I wanted to like incorporate that and understand, like, we got to protect our neighborhoods. We got to protect our culture. We need to be our own neighborhood watch. Because if we don't, nobody's going to step in and say, oh, well, this used to be McKinsey's or or this used to be Gambino's and now it's, I don't know, a fusion restaurant.
Right.
But, and again, I'm all for like the change and the growth. But I think as a culture, as a people, we need to protect our neighborhood. We need to protect our own a lot more than we do. Not saying I'm Martin Luther King or nothing like that, but I do believe in that. I think that's a real strong aspect. And then the rose that grew from the concrete, I got the bubblegum wrapper, like just to show you like things you would see in the neighborhood when you're hanging out, like, no mercy, never fragile, what you do, you have to, all these different little increments in here represent, the idea of the people that have strength, that's willing to protect it. You know what I mean? One of not many. It's not too many of us that's going to stand up to the multitude, to the people with the money, the monsters, whoever you're supposed to be scared of. So I wanted all that to be symbolism to that, and make sure that was the core thing, like, protect your neighborhood. Like, and again, this message will not be approved by, you know what I mean? Now I'm in a way that it's approved by who? It's approved by me. I've covered that out on purpose, because who is this message not approved by? What people said this message shouldn't be approved. So, like I said, I just wanted to feel like somebody protecting the neighborhood. Like if you went to a neighborhood of any other ethnicity and you just walk in, go look. So it's not just a black thing. It's a cultural thing, because you know your people, you have your tribe, but I feel like we need to protect ours like other people protect theirs.
So I'm gonna invite TENEILLE back really quick, and I'm gonna give you this, lady. Here. We'll go for a moment. We only got one question, but my friend Ren is asking, what is something in your studio that we wouldn't expect to see? Yeah, whichever one of y'all wants to take it.
Well, my studio is my apartment, so probably children just running, telling me to move, telling me you're too loud. You were saying something about what you listen to music. I also kind of blast my music too, so that's, so my family's in my studio.
It's so corny because I'm gonna sound like a nerd.
No, it's not like a nerd. We love it.
But no, it's funny. Like I said, I love writing. I love reading. So it's two books that people probably would never expect to see in my studio. It's a copy of Edgar Allan Poe, and I have a book of 40,000 quotations that range from Byron to Nietzsche to Fitzgerald to all these philosophers, and I read them. I read it faithfully, and again, like I incorporate a lot of that stuff in the work, and I get a lot of names, ideas from that as well. But yeah, my Edgar Allan Poe book is, that's my boy, kind of.
Okay. Also, we have a lot of artists that follow the gallery, and so any advice, since you're both New Orleans artists, any advice for young artists, and you both are sort of really hustling and making it on your own outside of the traditional gallery system, even though obviously we're in a gallery right now, but any advice for putting yourself out there and how to promote your work, how to get started, how to not get discouraged?
You take this first.
I would probably say find an art community. Yeah. And I actually got that tip while I was at the residency. It was actually drilled that it's kind of imperative, and I found that out for myself. Yeah. So going to support other artists, engage, see other type of work, allow yourself to be inspired, but definitely finding an art community and being open to engagement.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off that. I fully agree on that. Finding your tribe, but also too, I'm big on this. Everybody know this about me. Business, business, because when you have a talent, and you love it, and it exudes like this is. I mean, come on, man. Yeah. I think we forget about business sometimes, and a lot of times, all the time, and and they know it. They dangle these things in front of us, and it's like, oh wow. But I'm big on business, and again, I learned that from the music industry. I learned that going on tour. I learned that sitting in meetings and realizing that, oh, this is the music business. It's not the rap. It's not just right the verse. You know what I mean? It's the music. It's called these things for a reason. But I think learning the business and having that balance of like allowing yourself to like take breaks.
Yeah.
Like she says, again, basically everything she said, Tail said in business, that would be your balance. You know what I mean? Those are the only two things I would give advice to any artist, anybody doing anything.
Yeah.
Like understand the business of it and try your hardest not to let your feelings get too involved. Because it's tough as artists, we sensitive about our SHIT. But you know, because we
That is really
you know what's the craziest part?
Hone in on that.
Yeah, like because we
struggle with that.
Yeah.
Shoot themselves in the foot.
and I'll tell you, I'll be completely honest with you. The stuff I may like be like, oh my God, this is gonna be you'll be like, oh, okay. And then it'll be like something I just was like one night,
Yeah.
oh my God. And it'll sell. And I'll be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but again, like I said, that's when I learned like that I can't have my feelings in this. Work. Because eventually you're gonna come in. I feel like a lot of paintings I made with sketches. Until I got to the point where I'm like, oh, I know how to do this. Like you say, it's precise now. Like, ooh, boom, 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 boom. So just, like I said, everything Chanel said, business and your feelings, you gotta control.
I know it's hard.
It's hard though.
It's hard when you put yourself into something and then you have to put a price on it, which is icky. And then you have to like put it out there.
And see, that's
and sometimes trust somebody else to put it out there.
Yes.
the right way. And the scariest part about being a creative, whatever you do, the difference between us and anybody else, and this is very important. We fail in public. You know what I mean? Like people see us fail.
Right.
Other people fail at home. You know, they're in the house, they can hide it.
Yeah.
Nobody sees it. So again, your feelings and your confidence and that strength has to be there because like, okay, I did a show, I didn't sell anything, I didn't even get any likes, So that next show.
Yeah.
What could I have done better? What could I have added to that painting that I rushed? You know what I mean? Just always stay in that mind state of like forward progress.
Yes.
Well, so they say great advice from God. I agree very much so. So for those of you who don't know, this show has been out for 2 months, Embodied, 4 amazing artists, New Orleans-based artists. Sadly, you only have a few more days, but luckily you have a few more days. So you have until the end of the day on Saturday to come and see us, 866 Camp Street. If you're not in New Orleans, you can look at the work at spillmanblackwellart.com and tell folks watching how, of course, we want you to follow the gallery, but how do you follow these artists? What's your IG?
You can follow me at JesusCyph. JesusCyph is real simple. I think I'm the only one.
My IG is T_the_artist, T the artist, and you can see my work there and follow me.
Awesome. Thank you both so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Y'all join us tomorrow. We'll have 2 more artists to have a chat with. Y'all have a good one.
All right. See y'all later.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah.